good evening. Welcome to the Vortex Sarasota show. I'm your host, George Lewis. I've got a really superb guest tonight, and she's just very, very friendly and just a really bright lady, and whose main goal is to make the world a better place, which in my book, that's fantastic. It doesn't matter what you believe. If you're here to make the world a better place, I certainly embrace you. Welcome, Jennifer.
Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for inviting me.
Jennifer Hancock. Jennifer has written a couple of books, really, but this one on humanism, the humanist approach to happiness, practical wisdom. We can all use a little practical wisdom.
Emphasis on the practical.
The emphasis on the practical. She also has a 4 DVD set, which offers the material that's in the book in a workshop.
A lot more detail.
A lot more detail.
A lot more detail.
And where can they buy those from you? I know they're on Amazon.
They're on Amazon. You can get them from me. If you go to humanisthappiness.com altogether, humanisthappiness.com, you'll find links to the video program, and you'll find links to the books that I have as well.
Great.
Great.
So obviously Jennifer is a writer and a film star. And but the other thing is she's also a public speaker, and I watched one of her talks, and she's an excellent speaker. So if you're looking for a humanist talk, Jennifer certainly would be the person to contact. And you specialize in ethics and morality.
Right. Humanist ethics, humanist morality, personal responsibility, and the role critical thinking plays in helping you implement that in your life.
Well, you know, what I think what I'd like to start with is you know, the word humanism takes such a beating from the Christianity corners that and most people really don't know what humanism is.
Right, and most people who are Christians don't realize that they approach their Christianity in a very humanistic way.
Absolutely.
And because they've never been explained what the philosophy is. And I want to emphasize it's a philosophy. People take from philosophy what works for them, and they ignore the parts that don't.
Right.
Right, and it's perfectly acceptable to do that with humanism, and people do it all the time. And as long as you embrace the morality, you know, the ethics and the personal responsibility, the day-to-day life aspect of this,
right,
you know, you're humanistic, right? It's not...
So that's the basic concept of humanism.
That's most of it, right? The official definition that I like to use is from the American Humanist Association.
Okay.
Humanism is a progressive philosophy of life that, without supernaturalism, affirms our ability and our responsibility to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment that aspire to the greater good of humanity. All right, now, there's 6 elements of that definition, 6 separate things that are in there. One of them is without supernaturalism. The other 5 are ability, responsibility, personal fulfillment, ethical life, greater good of humanity.
Right.
Right? So if you're just an atheist, but you don't have all those other things, we don't call you humanistic, we just call you an atheist. But if you're a person of faith, and you have all those 5 elements, but you still have supernaturalism, we're going to call you humanistic.
I got you. That makes
Right?
sense.
And that's pretty common throughout the world about how these terms are used.
Right.
And there's a huge interest in humanism right now. The UN just put out a magazine that was completely dedicated to the application of humanism to human struggles. And it's a really great read. You can find it online. I have a link to it somewhere, I think on my Facebook page.
Right.
But it's really interesting to read how people in India view humanism as applicable to helping them solve their problems. How does someone in Taiwan, like the culture minister just did, you know, why do they think humanism is going to help them with their relationship with China? Right? Because these are the discussions that a humanist has everywhere, wherever you are in the world, is how do I be the best, most ethical person I can be in the face of reality?
What's the short form answer to that question about Taiwan? How is humanism going to help their relationship with China? Is it because China doesn't have the the God thing going on?
No, it's more. It has less to do with the God not God question,
right,
and everything to do with recognizing that the people you're negotiating with are human beings.
Yes.
And that they have needs and desires and dreams just like you do, that it's not an us versus them dynamic that you're negotiating anymore. It's an us and us dynamic you're negotiating.
So it's a we thing.
It's a we thing. All right, and that's the power of it. A large part of my secular ministry, if you will,
right.
Has to do with the teaching of compassion, using compassion as a tool. People oftentimes talk about the need to be compassionate, but they don't spend any time thinking about what that actually means for their interpersonal relationships, what it means to be compassionate when you're at the supermarket. Right?
Everywhere. People
everywhere.
gloss over.
They gloss over it. They're thinking that it has to do with the big issues.
Right.
Morality isn't about the big issues. The big issues are easy, right? The big issues are easy to solve. It's the little day-to-day problems. Choosing between the lesser of two evils or the greater of two goods, where your morality either shines or it doesn't.
Right.
All right. And one of my most favorite posts that people comment on is shopping cart morality. Do you put your shopping cart back?
Uh-huh.
Right? And why would you want to do that? And why would you think about doing that? And what does it say about you if you don't? Are you really thinking about what impact you're having on yourself?
Right.
Like if you want a parking lot that doesn't have shopping carts all over the place, what are you doing to make that happen?
What goes wrong comes wrong.
Right. And so for me, the power of humanism, if you have a philosophy that can help you with the little things and help you do the little things better and more in tune with your personal ethics, then you have a philosophy that will serve you well when you do come to the big issues.
Well, that's where life's lived anyhow.
That is where life is lived anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the big things, they're rare.
Exactly.
Not as often, not nearly
But
as
are you
frequent.
compassionate with the old man who's struggling with the slidey thing at the supermarket?
Right.
Or are you frustrated because you want to get out of there? How are you approaching that situation? Because that's a real human being. And this is the focus of humanism, is understanding that your fellow human beings are real people. They're not cardboard cutout walk-ons in the movie that is your life. They're real human beings with real families, real problems, and you don't know anything about them.
Well, we get isolated in our little bubble.
We get isolated in our head.
Yeah, that's where life happens anyhow.
That's where
Yeah,
we're limited by our biology to a certain extent.
Yes.
But we can choose to override that programming and recognize that no, the world does not revolve around us. Everybody has this same handicap where we get stuck in our own head and we forget that the people we're interacting with are real human beings. And this is, I think, one of the powers of the humanist philosophy. A practicing humanist never feels alone in the universe.
That's fantastic.
Because we aren't alone, because we are constantly aware of our brothers and sisters, that we're biologically related to everybody on the planet. We're biologically related to all life on the planet.
So what I'm hearing you say is that a humanist is spending a lot of time in the moment.
Not just in the moment, but compassionately and intentionally
Right.
in the moment.
Well,
And it feels great.
The third
It feels
largest,
great.
the leader of the third largest religion in the world, the Dalai Lama, says that his religion is kindness.
Right.
And I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
When we get down to it, what's religion supposed to be about anyhow?
Exactly. If it's not helping you with your interpersonal relationships and it's not helping you to be a good person as the average person defines a good person, which is how you are treated by that other person,
Right.
then what is it doing for you in the big scheme of things? Because if it's not helping you be a good person, is it really going to help you in the afterlife? And I think here's the big beef with humanists with the idea of an afterlife, because we do, as a humanist, I do reject the idea of an afterlife, right?
Okay.
And I know a lot of people don't. I know a lot of your viewers don't, and that's fine.
Yeah, it is what it is.
But here's why we reject it. All right, is because it takes the focus away from this life onto a life that may or may not occur. Like, I don't know if we have an afterlife or not.
Right.
What I know is I'm alive now,
Right.
and like heck, I'm gonna waste it. Right? Albert Camus has a great line that I just love to bits, and I use it in almost all my talks.
So you're an existentialist?
Existentialism is kind of the starting point for my practice of humanism.
Okay.
There's a bunch of different entry points into the philosophy, but for me, existentialism, this existence is absolutely a huge part of my practice of humanism.
Right.
But he says if there's such a thing as sin, it consists in hoping for another life while eluding the implacable grandeur of this life.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It doesn't matter what you believe.
It doesn't matter what you believe. Don't
like
waste this life.
That one thing right
Because
there.
if you're wasting this life, do you really need another one? Right?
See, the path I follow really focuses on that very thing. You know,
Right.
that I need to be here in the moment, and I need to practice love and tolerance of others.
Exactly.
Do you know?
Oh yeah.
And that's no easy chore.
No, it's enough. It's enough work, and I kind of view if you're focusing on what you need to do for your next life, you're not living this life to the fullest. What are you going to do with the next one? Are you going to waste the next one too?
Let's look at that idea for a moment and see if there is another viewpoint. If we see this life as being preparatory for an afterlife, and the better we do here, the better we're going to have here, then that puts us right back into here.
Into here,
Into
exactly.
here, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I have an afterlife. I'm pretty sure I don't, but I'm pretty sure if there is, I'm not going to be penalized for
For being
living
good?
this life.
No.
Yeah, exactly. For being good
No.
and living life to the fullest.
No.
You know, and this is what the scientific viewpoint provides. A lot of people view science as a negative thing, as kind of a dry, emotionally vacant kind of look at the world. But the reality is, our Earth is, 13.5 billion years old?
Yes.
I'm alive, if I'm lucky, for 100.
You can't even.
You know, and 3 generations from now, my descendants won't even know I existed, most likely. Right? My life, in reality, I know my life is insignificant. I choose to live my life as if it matters anyways, because in the moment, it sure as heck matters to me. It sure as heck matters to my son and my husband.
Absolutely.
And to me, that is enough to motivate me. It excites me. You know, I kind of feel like if I was focused on something else, I'd be missing all of this.
Well, you know, part of my belief is that it's a mystery.
Right.
That's how I see it. It's a mystery. I don't power me. There's some kind of power somewhere that I draw on. I don't believe in, a bearded deity or any. I'm not there at all.
Man in the sky.
No,
right?
no. But I do believe there are some principles that I can learn to live within, where I make my life and others' life better, and that's I think the primary thing. We can't really prove the existence of God,
And we can't disprove
and
it.
we can't disprove it.
Right.
So from where I sit, it's like I need to respect your belief, the Catholic belief, all of it, except.
Except when it's anti-human.
Exactly, and
Right.
there's way too much anti-human stuff called religion.
Yeah, there is.
It's insane,
Yeah, Babu Goganini, who used to be the executive director of the International Humanist and Ethical Union, which is the international body, once told me, we're not anti-religion unless religion is anti-human, and then in which case we're going after you.
Absolutely.
And it's not the religion, it's not the belief, it's the anti-human. Because
Right.
humanism is a pro-human philosophy.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that we're anti the universe or anti our fellow creatures on the planet. We are completely aware that we are entirely dependent
Absolutely.
on
We're
the
interdependent.
ecosystem. We're interdependent. We're
Yes.
completely aware of that.
Right.
The difference is the sentience. Like we have it would be stupid of me or weird if I tried to be the best alligator I could be, because I'm not an alligator.
Wouldn't make a lot of sense.
It wouldn't make a lot of
No.
sense. But trying to be the best human I can be makes a lot of sense, because I am a human. And I can make that choice as a human to be the best, most ethical human I can be. And that's what humanism is. It's not an anti-environmentalism. It's not anti-other species. It's just a recognition that I am of the species human. And I'm
Yeah.
going to do the best at that I can.
And I'm so in alignment with that
Yeah.
concept. For me, there's this saying that I can't think of at the moment who's quoted it, but that we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Okay.
Okay, let's
Right.
assume that for a moment.
Right. Okay.
Well, if that's the case, why am I trying so hard to be spiritual? I'm already spiritual. I
Right.
need to try and be a good human
Right.
being.
Have the experience.
That's my job.
Have the experience.
Be the best I can be here now.
Right.
You know?
And that's the way I look at it. If it turns out I'm wrong about the supernatural, well, fine. I'll figure that out when I die, right?
And you're not going to get penalized too much.
If the universe is set up in such a way that someone doing their best to be the best person that they can be, to have this experience that they have, however we got to have this experience, I happen to think it's by chance. Other people think that they're put here for a reason, fine. But to not do that, give that experience its due
Right.
seems to me like a greater sin than ignoring this life because of whatever it is you think you should be doing instead of instead of this.
Especially when you understand the word sin just means error.
Right.
You know, and I mean, what an error that is. It doesn't make any sense. It's
Right.
because this gift of life, which I see it as being a gift, I like it.
Right. And I view life as an accident. And that's what makes it so darn precious.
And I'll take the accident, right?
I'm going to take the accident.
Right.
The fact that it's an accident makes it even more precious than if I considered myself to be here for special reasons, right? It's even more amazing that I'm here. And this is, I think, why when you meet humanists, we're energized. We do not have a problem with motivation. We feel connected to the universe. We're committed to living our life fully. We're committed to making the world a better place. And it's because we understand we're just here for a short time, and it's amazing we're here at all.
Well, aren't those the exact tenets of the Taliban?
The Taliban?
That's what I mean. You know, I'm being sarcastic. It's like, I mean, it's so far.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you know, the Taliban.
Right.
Here's the big problem I think with religion as a problem point is the idea that ours is the only way to believe, and that the fundamentalist part of it.
Yeah, the thing I struggle with and I have a real hard time with, and fortunately I don't have any friends that fall into this line. I have a couple, but they're real nice people.
Right.
But this idea that you have to, the good is considered obeying God, and they're assuming they know what God's will is.
Right.
And it's this assumption of God's will, I think, that causes all the problems. You know,
Right.
because it is an assumption. There's no way it's not, but then they adhere to it as if it's, you know, not just revealed knowledge, but
Right.
knowledge. And as so far, and I think this is why I get frustrated with the God, not God debate and why it's so pointless to me, is if you're going to debate what God's will is, you're debating something that no one can answer.
And if you think you can,
Like, even if there is a God, we can't even answer that question.
Well,
We can't even agree on whether there's a God, who that God is, what their properties are. You know, we can't even agree on that, and we're going to try and have a conversation about what this being's, you know, even pantheism, right? This idea, not secular pantheism, but spiritual pantheism.
right.
You know, even that is beyond our ability to have a rational conversation about. And it's up to the individual what they want to believe about the universe and everything. And that's fine by me. What I care about is not what you believe or what you profess to believe. It's how you act, because that's what's going to impact me.
Right.
All right, I'm in charge of how I choose to act, and I choose to act as best I can, understanding that I have an obligation to try and make other people's lives and interactions with me as pleasant as possible, within my ability, without, you know, going against my value system.
Right.
But if we're going to have conversations, you know what I'm saying? It's
I
like,
absolutely do.
I just don't even enjoy those conversations because there's no point. It's like, I don't believe, I can't prove that I'm right in not believing. I just,
Right. There's no proof either way.
technically I'm an agnostic that leans very heavily atheist. But none of that really matters to anybody I meet. What matters to them is not what I believe or don't believe. It's how I choose to act with them.
How do you behave?
How do I behave towards them? And that's, to me,
Absolutely.
why promotion of humanism excites me so much, is because that's what you need to know about me. I choose to view you as a fully equal human being to me.
Right.
And with all that mind-blowingly entails about who you are to me.
Absolutely.
And it is mind-blowing. And when I talk about it in the book, I say this is going to alter, this one little switch alters everything in your life. It alters everything, and it's the heart of humanism, is to recognize the humanity of everybody else.
Do you know much about mysticism?
A little
Mystics.
bit. A little bit.
So, you know, what credence do you give to your inner life, as far as
My emotional life?
Well, not just your emotional life. I mean, you have an intuitive life. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Where does that? What generates that? What do you see there?
My neurological system?
You think?
Yeah.
You-
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is
I'm
it,
with you.
right? You know, and this is a disconnect. It's like I talk to my friends that are Christians, and a big issue for them is, where does their compassion come from? And I'm like, it's part of our biological toolkit, our emotional toolkit that we were evolved to have, is these emotions.
Right.
For whatever reason they were selected for. Okay? And that's enough for me. I don't really care how we got there. I care that it's part of our toolkit and that we use it and implement it in our lives. That to me is more important than how we got there, because we're never going to agree on how we got there.
You made one statement that I in your talk. Actually, wasn't your talk. You have a podcast, or
I have a podcast,
in your podcast,
weekly 1 minute, how to be better in your life.
It seems so not you.
Really?
Yes.
I might have been cranky that day.
Well, that might have been what was going on.
I might have been cranky.
You might have just read the book we were talking about earlier.
Oh yeah, I might have.
Okay, that might have been. But what you said was that people who were religious, basically, what you said, how did you phrase it? They weren't rational.
Yeah, no, I'd still say that, because from my perspective, right? To me, when I talk to my friends of faith,
right,
it's about why they're of faith. It becomes very clear to me that's an emotional decision rather than a rational one. And that doesn't disparage the fact that it's an emotional decision. I make emotional decisions all the time.
But you see, that's a decision you're making. I'm not sure is valid.
It might not be.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I hear it, but
right.
But let me give you where I'm at. I have put a great deal of effort into determining what I believe. I think it's the most important. Like you,
right.
Obviously you think it's the most. I think it's the most important thing I can do. I think that's rational.
Right.
And I know people who are deeply spiritual who are really rational.
Oh yeah, they can be very, very rational, but the choice to believe or not believe, in my case, is not something that can ever be rationally justified.
Well, yeah, but so either one.
Right, exactly. It's
yeah.
not the decision to believe or not believe is not something that can be justified using logic and reason.
So
and
by
science.
the same statement, then what you're saying to me is that you don't see yourself as rational.
Oh no, I do, but I don't apply it. That's different from the belief of the God not God question.
Right.
Okay, we have no rational basis to determine God not God.
Right.
Okay, there's no rational basis to have that conversation.
Couldn't
Now,
agree
we
more.
can have a rational discussion about the merits of compassion
Right.
without appeal to supernaturalism. We can have the merits of the discussion of responsibility as a rational discussion without appeal to things that we can't rationally appeal to.
Right.
I'm aware that my non-belief is not really grounded in anything except that I don't see any evidence for it.
Right.
Right, but I don't know, again, more agnostic, leaning. The disbelief is a belief.
I hear.
Okay, the rational side of me is agnostic.
Right.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And so when I say someone who's choosing a supernaturalism is doing so without recourse to rationalism, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Because it's the same thing whether you're rejecting it or whether you're embracing it. We don't have any rational basis to make that judgment.
Part of the problem is that we kind of like, with that statement, we run up against science these days, especially in the realm of physics,
Mm-hmm.
which now is, like they know for sure there are at least 11 dimensions.
Well, no, they don't know that for sure.
Well,
There's still debate
They
over that.
postulate that.
There's probably is. I'm a string theory fan, so I kind of go with that as well.
Oh, I'm with string theory myself.
Right.
I-
But the fact is, it's not. It's a theory. It's a mathematical theory that works better than the other mathematical.
Yeah, and they don't know.
And they don't really know. Exactly.
No, and they don't know.
So there's still scientific debate on it.
But the point is, there's a lot more going on than what we realize. A
Right.
lot more going on
Right.
than what we realize. And for me, it all comes down to just being a big mystery. you
Right.
know. I have to tell you that I'm like so much closer to where you're at than
Right.
I am any fundamentalist religion.
Right. Well,
It's
here's
like
what I
that.
would say about this issue. I don't know if you've ever read Camus' The Myth of Sisyphus.
I absolutely read it back
Okay.
in the 70s.
Do you remember the part where he's talking about the existence or non-existence of God being irrelevant?
I don't.
Probably not. Okay.
I mostly remember in The Rock, 'cause
Right,
that's what I was doing at the
part.
time,
It's a great book. Well, at one point, there's like a 2-page section where he talks about the irrelevancy of God's existence.
Right.
All right. And what he says is, if God exists, it's perfectly clear that this being, whatever it is, doesn't care whether we have a personal relationship with it.
Right.
All right. And if it did want us to have a personal relationship, it would have been better to give us more to go on.
Absolutely.
Right? So in the absence of that, he feels comfortable assuming that there is no God, not because he believes that there's no God or not because he has proof of that, but because it's pretty clear the way that you can blaspheme God and not have a lightning bolt strike you.
Oh, I've done
Right?
it many times.
Done it many times, right? So if
Yeah.
there was a God who really cared about these things, we would expect the universe to work a little bit differently. If there is a God, it's pretty clear it's not a personal relationship sort of.
Certainly isn't anthropomorphic.
Right, okay.
Certainly,
So
yeah.
so to me, that's kind of the essence of why I find the God, not God discussion kind of pointless, is because it doesn't, to me, I agree with Camus, whether God exists or not is irrelevant to my choice to be an ethical, compassionate, responsible person.
Right.
Because even if God exists, even if the Christian God exists, as defined by fundamentalists, friends of mine, I'm still choosing to be a humanist, not because I'm rejecting the existence of God, because I wouldn't if there was proof, but because I still think that the benefits of being an ethical, compassionate, and responsible person are so important. Right?
But-
So for me, it's not about the belief or not belief. It's I happen to not believe, which makes the feeling that God is irrelevant easier to do, obviously. But the point is I'm a human, I'm alive now, what am I going to do about that fact? Everything else is conjecture, and it's
the
kind of
word
point-
God has so
pointless.
much baggage with it.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
like, I mean, it means so many different things to so many
Yeah.
people. What I feel is I live in an intelligent universe.
Okay.
That's where I come from.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out the best I can how I can live within the frame of that intelligent universe with kindness and prosper.
Right. And see, I go and I think if the universe is intelligence or non-intelligent, it's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm still going to choose. Because I can't know, and it doesn't matter how much time I spent trying to find out the answer to that question. I'm never going to have an answer to it. So do I spend my time trying to get an answer to that question, or do I spend my time living my life?
The problem is we have no more time to spend. We're out.
Done?
Did
It
that
went
happen
so
fast?
quickly.
So put your book up again.
Book.
Website?
Humanisthappiness.com. And read them. They're good. I'm told they're very, very profound.
You've been an absolute pleasure, Jennifer.
Well, thanks for having me on.
I am so glad we had this conversation. I would have a conversation with you any day of the week.
Oh, thank you.
So if you get in Sarasota, you want to have a cup of coffee, let me know. We will do it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, because I had a really good time with Jennifer. She's a bright, bright lady, and she also wrote another book. This is a really important book. It's called The Bully Vaccine. There's so much bullying going on in the world. Go to her website. Believe me, go to her website, especially if you're on Facebook. And some of the people who have a picture of somebody else and they're giving you a bad time and they're not even identifying themselves, go get her book, The Bully.
I
Medicine.
teach you how not to be bullied
Absolutely.
using operant conditioning techniques, and they work.
Absolutely. Listen, come back again next week, same time. In the meantime, don't forget to accentuate the positive. Have a fantastic week.